Ah, Christmas time. The one part of the year where the weather gets nice and cold. I can cuddle up in a warm blanket, drink a tasty cup of hot cocoa, and relax. The only thing that would make this season a whole lot better would be some holiday themed games, so let's check the Steam store, shall we? Alright, what do we have here? Oh, what about this one? It doesn't seem too bad. Okay, I'm convinced. Hooligan Vasja. Judging by the reviews alone, this isn't looking to be a great game, but I did spend money on it, so here goes nothing. Already off to a great start. Right off the bat, I can say this UI isn't giving off "this is a fantastic game" vibes, but the structure of the menu is fine, and at least there was an effort made in the background art. But I don't know, something about this boy staring at me kinda gives me the creeps. You know what they say, you can't really judge a book by its cover, so let's hop right in. There's a lot to unpack here. First off, what I got instantly reminded of when seeing this was this mobile game I used to play ages ago called Ninjump. If you never played it, picture this, but, well, good. The goal of the game is to deliver the amount of presents at the top left, while various enemies like old men and goblins try to stop you. I won't question it. After that number is reached, you face off against that level's boss, and once defeated, you move on to the next level to do the same exact thing, but this time with more presents. The game ends if one of three things happen. 1, you run out of HP, 2, the timer runs out, or 3, you hit any of these stupid ledges. It's a pretty straightforward and simple game to say the least. It controls as well as you'd expect a game of this quality to control. Good enough. You aim your mouse, left click to fire snowballs, right click to shoot the fireworks as screen wipe, and space for presents. The only things that bothered me about the controls were how turning was mapped to where the mouse was rather than the buttons, and the difference in aiming between the presents and the snowballs. The presents had such a huge arc on them that you have to get used to aiming just above the window where they needed to be. At first, I was horrible at this, but as time went on, I actually got pretty decent at aiming these shots. Other than that, there's not much else to this game, so let's talk about the pros and cons. Starting with the many cons, the game is just very repetitive and has very little to no replayability. All the levels are practically the same, with only adding a new palette swap enemy and way too many presents. On top of this, if you die at any point, you'll have to restart from the first level. This very well could be seen as either a pro or a con, but I definitely see it as a con. Another issue with the game is the soundtrack. You'd think with the word Christmas being in the title, the background music would be somewhat themed, but no, it isn't in the slightest fitting. To go along with this no theming, it felt like the choice of enemies and bosses were almost random because I'm not sure what goblins and scarecrows have anything to do with Christmas. The only thing that appears to be following the Christmas spirit are the presents, the main menu music, the background, and the little Santa hats they gave the boy and the cats. But to say this game had nothing it did decently would be a lie, because there were some things I did enjoy, like how at times the game kept you on your toes by increasing the amount of enemies, or how simple the gameplay was. Honestly, once I understood how the game worked and got decent at aiming, I played for a good 30 minutes and had a good bit of fun the entire time. Now that I've talked about everything this game has to offer, it's time to share my final opinion on the game. Compared to my initial thoughts on Hooligan Vasja, I don't think the game was actually that terrible. Sure, there was a good bit wrong with the game, and it's nothing that blew me away, but for a mere 99 cents, it's far from horrible at all. And as I said earlier, I actually enjoyed my time with the game. With that said, I can't really recommend you go out and try the game for yourself, so I'm giving the game a solid 6 out of 10. Man, if this is the type of quality that I can expect, I'm actually getting pretty excited to check out the rest of the games. I definitely won't regret those words, right? Now this is a half-decent starting screen. My initial reaction of the game was a positive one based solely on the startup alone. The text is a lot easier on the eyes, a lot more effort put into the visuals, music that's welcoming, and no creepy boy. Again, I can't be too nice or too harsh to a game I haven't even played yet, so let's try out level 1. I can already tell my expectations were set way too high. Something that immediately caught my attention was just how horrible the frame rate was. It's not too noticeable for you guys, but it was actually horrendous for me. It was so bad, in fact, that I barely made it through the first 2 levels before checking to see if maybe their graphics settings weren't optimized. In all fairness, they weren't, but even after fixing them, literally nothing changed. So I had to face the harsh reality that I had to suck it up and keep going. The premise of Christmas Rampage is pretty easy to follow. It's an extremely simple run and gun with no unique mechanics to it. There were these presents scattered throughout each level, but I didn't find out until after I finished the game that these actually give you power-ups. Honestly, it made zero difference to me because the game is just so easy. Okay, it's easy when I'm not trolling. The game has 11 different levels and I'll say this now, all of them are structured exactly the same. You load into the world, follow a linear path, chuck snowballs at various critters until you reach the boss at the end. I played through all 11 stages expecting at least one of the bosses to be somewhat challenging, but nope, they all played out the same. I didn't want the game to be Dark Souls level hard or anything, but I'd like a little spice, even if that's just a difficulty spike, because it was an absolute chore to play every stage. Now, something I will give the game props for is the music. Unlike Hooligan Vasja, the background music for a lot of the stages is kinda themed, and the theming as a whole is a step in the right direction. Everything about this game just felt a lot more Christmassy, like the level design, enemy sprites, bosses, music. There wasn't really a single moment where I questioned if I was really playing a Christmas game or not. Now that I've talked about the core of the game, I suppose it's time to talk about the many issues it has. Unlike Hooligan Vasja, there wasn't a single thing I liked about Christmas Rampage. Despite the game being better holiday-wise, the gameplay was definitely lacking. As I said earlier, every single level is almost an exact carbon copy of each other. The lack of any new gimmicks made playing the game real bland real quick. Once you've played through the first level, congratulations! You don't need to keep going and you can save yourself an hour of your life. On top of this, half the time, chunks of the stage wouldn't even load, leaving me to wander blindly until I happened to stumble across where I needed to go. And don't even get me started with the final level. Up until this point, I thought, you know, this game sucks, but at least there was an effort made. This stage single-handedly flipped that on its head. None of the stage was made, and I mean none. There was maybe a total of 3 places that had textures for me to see, but for the rest of it, I had to use my snowballs to map out the path. This level was so infuriating that I even considered giving up here and moving on to the next game. But I didn't, and it wasn't worth it because the boss was no different from any of the previous ones. What a surprise. Even when the levels wanted to display properly, they were just so boring. You could tell me that the developers used the same level format but just reskinned them, and I would 100% believe you. In a similar fashion to the levels, the music at times was just so random or straight up non-existent. Listen to this and tell me, how exactly is this Christmas themed? Well, I guess there was at least one dev who understood this as a clown of a game. Genuinely, I've played better things on cool math games, and I don't have to pay for those. So, yeah, that's everything I wanted to say about Christmas Rampage, but let's play a little game before I say my final rating. Welcome, folks, to today's games of
Guess That Price!
I'm your host, Chris, and we have a steamy pile of garbage in front of us. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean Christmas Rampage. Silly me. Now, the rules are simple. After hearing my experience with this glorious game, you have to guess how much I spent on it. Is it A, 99 cents, B, $1.99, C, $20, or D, $5? Cast your votes in the comments now. If you guessed D, you would be correct. Thank you for joining us in
Guess That Price!
2 out of 10, a waste of $5 and wouldn't recommend even if it was free. I've talked a lot about starting screens today, but this has got to be the worst one by far. Who knows? I've been proven twice now that there's a lot more to a game than its UI. Except for this one. This game is a steamy pile of shit. My review of this game is going to be kept short, simply due to the fact there's nothing here. Truth be told, out of the 4 games I purchased, this one struck me as the absolute worst one. And I thought it would be bad in a funny way, but it's just bad. You control a car on this path to deliver the quote-unquote cargo, which I'm assuming are presents, but half of me wants to believe we're playing as a drug dealer. The reason I have suspicion that we're dropping off drugs is the fact the cops are chasing after us the entire time. Why else would the cops be chasing us for simply carrying cargo? Oh, Probably because I ran over quite a bit of pedestrians. Whatever, I'm getting off track. When the cops run into you, some of your cargo gets taken along with it. The cargo essentially acts as your health bar because once you reach the end, it's game over. I really tried giving this game a chance, but it somehow managed to be even more boring than Christmas Rampage. Like, how is that even possible? It's not like it controls poorly or anything. It handles decently, but there's nothing to do. The only obstacles are the police. You can run over people, I guess, for points, but that's it. Once you reach the end, you do the same thing in a different city. To add the icing on top of the cake, the audio and visuals just suck. Making any turn at all generates this horrid sound. And to sound like a broken record, the only Christmas thing about a game called Crazy Christmas is the Santa hat the plug wears. I can't wrap my mind around what this game was even trying to be. The title leads me to believe it wants to be a Crazy Taxi ripoff, but the gameplay leads more towards, I procrastinated on my project, here, have this. I'm sorry, I got too heated. My final rating is a 1 out of 10. $2 I'd rather have spent on an ice cold Dr. Pepper. After playing through both the previous game and this one, I'm beyond shocked. I found Hooligan Vasja boring at first. Compared to these two, it looks like the most entertaining thing ever. But there's still one last game left, so let's just get this over with. Christmas Rocket Pudding, the final thing I'll have to suffer through. I don't think there's any possible way I could be disappointed more after what I've been through, so needless to say, I'm expecting nothing with this one. By Chris Boyfield. It's kind of like Chris Redfield from Resident Evil. Wait a minute, I mean, I did die instantly, but I think this game's cooking. Alright, it's definitely whipping something up. Surprisingly enough, I managed to find a diamond in the rough. Despite how silly this game looks, it's actually extremely fun. There are 3 different game modes to choose from. The best one in my opinion is the standard lap mode. You race around the track 3 times as fast as possible. Nothing else to it. My least favorite is the snowman one, where you try your best to shoot 10 different snowmen scattered all over the place. And last, but definitely not least, is Candy Cane Collect. I don't think I need to explain what you do in that one. The reason I enjoy standard compared to the rest is because the movement is so fun to mess around with, and you don't have to worry about any other objectives. Testing out certain paths and seeing how fast I could go at certain segments of the track was an absolute blast. Not to say the others were boring by any means, but aiming up shots for the snowman or going out of the way for candy canes pales in comparison of speeding around like Sonic. With all this talk of movement, it should be apparent that this controls beautifully. You kind of have to play somewhat cautiously because if you don't slow down early enough or turn too late, you'll end up smacking against the wall and have to start over. This momentum-based movement is actually so fun because it allows you to beat some maps insanely quick. Oh, right. Speaking of maps, there are a variety of levels and worlds to play. The shocking part is the maps are actually unique and offer new experiences. What? Out of all the levels I tried out, the best one in my opinion is 1-5, only because you can hold W the entire time and clear the stage in under half a minute, which is wild to me. The last thing I need to go over are the ornaments. It's not complicated or anything, but I figured I'd go over everything. You get 1 to 3 ornaments depending on how quickly you beat a certain mode, and you use them to unlock the next world. Now with everything out of the way, let's talk about what this game did right and wrong. Unlike every game I've talked about today, there wasn't a whole lot I didn't like about this game. For what I spent on this game and what it is, everything is done exceptionally well. My only complaint is sometimes the collisions with walls were a bit dumb, and I wasn't a huge fan of restarting when slamming into walls, but that makes sense since we are a piece of chocolate pudding. But other than that, I didn't dislike anything about this game, and I can only think of positives. Christmas Rocket Pudding is simple enough to understand, yet keeps me engaged and makes me want to play more. Everything from the multiple game modes, unique and creative level design, or how it feels like cool math games run. It's just a very solid game, and it would be criminal if I gave it anything lower than an 8 out of 10. Definitely worth every penny I spent, and shockingly enough, is the one title I'll recommend you guys go pick up for a mere 99 cents. It feels really nice to end things off with a banger game. Goes to show that even amongst the projects that felt rushed, or have a lack of direction, you can find the projects that people really took the time to make enjoyable. Christmas updates are some of my personal favorite events a game can have, but today proves simply slapping Christmas onto something doesn't make it good. It was a nice change of pace to pick up some random titles and review them for y'all, even if half the games were just awful. It's still fun to branch off from what I normally play. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see more videos similar to this in the future or anything else you'd like me to do. As is customary on the channel, I want to say thank you so much if you made it to this point of the video, and for today's reward, you can have this silly little cat. Also, I wanted to quickly mention, we recently hit 1,000 subscribers on the channel, which absolutely blows my mind because 2 months ago, we were only at 200. To everyone who's supporting the channel in any way you are, thank you so much. Words genuinely cannot express how happy I am to see just how many of you are enjoying the content, and I promise to keep trying my best to make quality videos. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Hope y'all have an amazing day, and I'm not good at ending stuff, so bye bye.